Hi, everybody. Welcome to a special chat, basically, version of Circling the Bases. We're going to be doing something fun today. We're going to be opening two boxes. Well, it's technically one box, but we'll call it two. We're going to be opening some Bowman Chrome, and this is one of my favorite sets of the year. While we're doing that, we'll be answering your questions. By we, I mean me. If you have any questions about prospects, if you have any questions about the postseason, please let me know. I'll promote this at the end too, but me, Colin Henderson, DJ Short, and Drew Silva will be doing a podcast talking about the postseason, especially these two wild card games coming up. Boston Red Sox versus the New York Yankees. People generally get excited about that. And also we have the Dodgers versus the Cardinals. It'll be a lot of fun. But for now, let's talk about some baseball cards. Feel free to leave any questions in the comments and I'll definitely get to them. Before we get started, I thought I would show some of my favorite first Bowmans. And for those of you who are not familiar, the first Bowman is a big deal for card collectors. It is that very first time that these guys have been in the set. A lot of these cards are worth quite a bit of money. I just saw a Christian Hernandez first Bowman gold, which means it's out of 50, signed to go for $5,500 in an auction, which is a lot of money. I don't have anything quite that valuable, but I do have some fun ones, so I thought I'd show them before we get started. I have 6 that are encased. I'll be honest, I've never actually gotten a card encased. I've bought these or have won these through breaks, just already encapsulated. It's just too expensive for me to actually have cards. When it becomes normal again, as I get more into this stuff, I'll probably do it. But for now, these are the ones that I have. So I'll just go in order of their grade, actually. First up, we have Marco Luciano, his first Bowman. I'll be honest with you, I can't tell the difference between these 9s and 10s. I mean, that looks like a pretty nice card to me. Marco Luciano has a chance to be an absolute superstar, so I'm excited about that one. My other 9, so I got this guy here, Mr. Mookie Betts, and I apologize for any glare. There's really nothing I can do about it. I've always been surprised that Mookie Betts cards don't go for more. He's one of the very best players in baseball. He's played for 2 of the iconic franchises, but I don't know. People seem more interested in other guys. He's also a pretty good bowler. That should count for something. No, not really. But so those are the 9s, and then my 10s. I've got Brendan Rodgers. Huge fan of this guy still, and was really impressed with what he did in his limited time this year. I think this is a guy that I'd be looking, if you're a card person, to invest in right now, because I think Brendan Rodgers has a chance to be a star. A little bit of volatility, but an awful lot to like. Bobby Witt Jr., best prospect in baseball from a fantasy perspective, in my opinion. The best prospect overall in baseball is Adley Rutschman. Been looking to try to get some Adley Rutschman. It's pretty difficult right now unless I want to spend an awful lot of money. Maybe I'll start a GoFundMe or something like that to get Chris Crawford and Adley Rutschman via Bobby Witt Jr. Huge potential. Wander Franco. That's a 10 as well. Only thing about this one is it's the paper version. So for those who aren't familiar, there are Chrome cards, which is exclusively what we're going to be opening today. But then there's also the paper cards. Now, the paper cards don't have near the value of the Chrome, but it is certainly not something that I'm looking to give away either, because Wander Franco, I mean, I think some of you guys may have seen the stat today that he put up like a 3.8 WAR in half of a season as a 20-year-old. I mean, just unbelievable talent. And then my last one, this is probably the most valuable of them. Luis Robert. I mean, superstar. A chance to be a really special player. Yeah, Mike, I agree completely. Witt has a chance to be a really special baseball player. It's a shame we didn't get to see him play this year. I mean, as good of as much as I understand that the MLBPA agreed to this situation as much as the Major League Players Union, and that's not saying that owners should take advantage of this rule. It just stinks that the MLBPA threw their players under the bus. We really should have seen Bobby Witt Jr. play this year in the majors, but do you think you'll see an awful lot of him next year? Next week, I'll have my list of my top 10 fantasy prospects to begin 2022. It's so weird saying that, but he will rank very highly. So here we go, opening up the first box of Bowman Chrome, and I will end up going through and putting these cards in top loaders and stuff afterwards. But for now, You'll just have to see me rawing it. One autograph per box. So hopefully we see something good. I'd love to see a Christian Hernandez or a Wilman Diaz or even a Luis Rodriguez or something like that. And sorry for the ASMR, or you're welcome for the ASMR of sounding, but I love the sound of those cards opening. All right, here we go. First up, Mike Yastrzemski. Good season. Batting average was a little lower than I would have liked to have seen, but a good season. Jose Abreu. Jose Abreu might be the one person like where we talk about RBI, and it's like, you know, you can't predict RBI. You can't. I think you can start predicting with Jose Abreu that the RBI is just always going to be there for him. There's just too large a sample, and it's based on nothing but the fact that I just keep seeing him always ranked near the top of the top of the RBI leaderboard. Pulled a Wilman Speckle Otto. Oh, very nice. Yeah, that's out of 299. The Wilman Speckle. I just sold a Wilman Diaz orange out of 25 for an amount of money that I'm not comfortable talking about, but you know, it'll help feed my hobby for a very long time. Wilman Diaz is a guy I'm definitely hoping to see in this because he is a very talented player. It'd be great to see his autograph, just in case we don't see it today, and there's a very good chance that we don't. Take a look at it because it is exactly like Walt Disney, like exactly like it. I don't know if that's intentional or not, but it's pretty cool. Our inserts, Austin Hendrick, kind of a mediocre year, but first full season of playing baseball. There's still an awful lot to like. Okay, and then we have a couple of first Bowmans. Christian Santana, long way to go, but a chance to be a very nice player. And then Luis Medina, also a long way to go. More of a fourth outfielder type, but you know, not bad, not bad. It's always nice to get first Bowmans. And yeah, I would say that's true too, Mike. Like for those who are not looking, Mike suggests that the best time to sell is that first week, and that's true. The hype of a first set always leads to a big amount, and then everything kind of calms down. Market's crazy right now. Somebody asked me before we started going live, like, why are these cards so expensive? Well, the market is it's slowed down, but it is still a very strong market, and it was a good class this year. There's a lot of really good first Bowmans this year. From the original Bowman hobby set, Austin Martin, you know, everybody was looking for that, even though Austin Martin's value has dropped a little bit. Still a chance to be a really good player, and certainly a guy that I'd be looking to acquire, especially since his value has dropped a little bit. But yeah, there's this set, especially of Bowman Chrome, which is specifically Bowman Chrome, has a ton of really, really talented players. Like, they're a long way to go, but there are some really talented guys. Okay, Cody Bellinger, will not give up on you. I know you've been just like terrible this year, and I know you're actually not listening to this, so I don't know why I'm talking to you like that, but Cody Bellinger is so talented. I really think that he's a great bounce back candidate next year. Speaking of bounce back candidates for next year, yeah, Gleyber Torres. And I was very encouraged by what we saw towards the end of the year. A guy that I actually have 4 PSA 10 rookies of his, and I will not sell until a very, very long time. And I would agree with that, Mike. It is the best set of Chrome that I've come across. Yeah. Well, that's fun. So these are a refractor. This is out of 499. Paul Goldschmidt. Very nice season this year. Maybe could have been in the MVP conversation a little bit, if not for the fact that there were some guys who just flat out were much better this year. But yeah, I love the look of these refractors. As you can see, the nice little shiny. And then if you can tell right there, it's numbered. So yeah, really pretty card. Nick Gonzalez. So that was an interesting little lull he went on, but then finished real hot. I have some questions about the defense. Like, they list him at shortstop. There's no way he's a shortstop. He's a second baseman. The Pirates have basically already admitted that, but a real nice player that I think is going to hit for a high average. Power's the question mark. Like, he showed such power potential in New Mexico State, but that was the most friendly hitting combines you can have. I think he's closer to a 15 to 20 homer guy, but a nice player. And then Wander Franco. It's not his first Bowman, but Wander Franco, I mean, he has a chance to be a star. Like he already kind of is a star, but he has a chance to be like that special type of player. I love him. It's it was nice to see somebody live up to the hype when we had so many rookies struggle. And I'm still very high on a lot of those guys, Jared Kelnick especially. But it was very nice to see somebody like Wander Franco, that young, do what he did. So impressive. So impressive. All right. Shane Mcclanahan, so that's his rookie card. Very pitchers are just not worth as much as hitters, but a very nice pitcher. Maybe your game one starter for the NLDS or ALDS, excuse me. Haven't seen if that's announced yet. I'd go with Shane Boz, and they're going to have to cheat to get him on the roster, but everybody cheats to get everybody on the roster. Joey Votto, good player. It was nice to see some resurgence in the pop there. Not sure how long it's going to last, but and Joey Votto is a first ballot Hall of Famer for me, if anybody was ever curious about that. All right, we have our first auto, and it is Melvin Valdez. And it's nice that it's a refractor, so it is numbered of 499. A long way to go with this guy. I'm looking at his birthday right now. He was born October 14th, 2003. Almost happy birthday for him. One of the better young prospects in the Red system, but you're talking about a long way to go. But definitely a hold there. I mean, it's an interesting auto. I think it's interesting looking at the autos for these guys because since nobody uses cursive, there's the only time you're really using cursive is your Bowman, your autograph for these kids. So it'll be interesting to see. It's very interesting seeing in the NBA, some guys just write their initials, and that's true about these baseball players as well. Because you just don't use cursive anymore. So why would you have some sort of fancy auto? So Reed Detmer's not a rookie card, but Reed Detmer's is a weird one for me. I think Reed Detmer's has a real chance to be a very nice mid-rotation starter, but I saw some prospect sites ranking him a little higher than I think I would have. I think he's a very safe pitching prospect, if there is such thing as a safe pitching prospect. I don't think that there's any doubt that he can be a helper, but I don't think we're looking at a future ace. I think that he is just one of those guys who's going to be a very solid mid-rotation to back-end starter. And there's nothing wrong with that, but especially from a fantasy angle, and we're NBC Sports Edge, so we have to talk about this at least a little bit from a fantasy sports angle. If you're expecting him to be this next superstar, you're expecting too much. This is not a guy who is going to put up the type of strikeout numbers that he put in the minors. He's just not. That is not the stuff that Reed Detmers has. And it's better than it was at Louisville. He's improved, no question about it. But he's closer to me in terms of fantasy. He'll rank somewhere in that 50 to 60 range compared to the 20 to 30 range you might rank in a real life list. Ooh, that's fun. Joey Bart rookie card. Big expectations for him next year. It may not be with the Giants, but I have big fantasy expectations for him next year. Tariq Skubal, again, a nice rookie season. Mize is the better guy to me, but certainly a guy who can help long-term. Jared Kelly. Wouldn't give up on Jared Kelly just yet. Really struggled in his professional time this year, but he was the best high school prep prospect in that class for me. And I can't give up on a guy just based off one bad season. I can't. I refuse to do it. Okay, fun couple of first Bowmans to end this pack anyway. Edie Cappy, super talented, really talented. And I think you have to keep in mind too with some of these guys, the Barnum's player development system is really good, really good. So that I think adds value to him. So that's a nice one. And then I think this is the best first Bowman in the set is Christian Hernandez. A chance to be a star. If I was comparing him to a player, and it was funny, I was talking to somebody about this and they almost made it sound like an insult, but he kind of reminds me of Xander Bogaerts. And I think that's I think some people were expecting me to say something like Manny Machado or even a Fernando Tatis Jr. Yeah, Xander Bogaerts is one of the best shortstops in baseball. If he reaches that, that's a really nice ceiling to reach. So yeah, Christian Hernandez has a chance to be a star. One of the best player, I think, in this list, with all due respect to some of the other guys, but I think he has the highest upside, and because of his positional value, I think the highest floor as well. All right, George Springer. I can't help but think if he would have stayed healthy this year, and this is not an insult to George Springer, just the reality of the situation, that if he would have stayed healthy this year, we're talking about them winning the wild card and maybe winning the division. They ended up losing the division by like 9 games, so maybe that's a stretch, but he's really good. He's a really good player, and he helped them a lot. Clark Schmidt, rookie card. Clark Schmidt's another guy kind of similar to Reed Detmers, where I think a little more real life value than fantasy, and I want to see him stay healthy, but yeah. All right. This is the Shimmer card, so it's not numbered, but it's really pretty. You can see right here. Gabriel Arias, really nice prospect. I think he'll be a starter for Cleveland for most of the 2022 season, a guy who can help. Milkar Perez, a guy that I like quite a bit, one of the better younger prospects in the Mariners system. Mariners system's kind of top-loaded, like with the guys that Julio Rodriguez and some of their pitching guys. But Perez is a guy I think who can really help in a few years, a really good defensive player. He was born 2001, so just about to turn 20. Talking about 2022, 2023 helper. And then this guy might be the second most talented player in the set behind Christian Hernandez, Carlos Colmenares. And again, the Rays have done wonders with this type of profile. Colmenares would be a guy I would be looking to get at in a fantasy dynasty league because he has a chance to help in a lot of categories. It's going to be a while. You're going to have to hold on to him for a while, but Colmenares is a guy who can really help. All right, last pack of the first. Solid first pack. Solid first box. Not great, like that Otto isn't the ideal, but a refractor Otto and a talented player, but it's definitely a hold. JD Martinez, I saw he got hurt. Be a big loss. Big loss for them if he can't go in that wild card game or if he can't play if they advance past. Bryce Harper, just a super overrated player. Just, doesn't do enough, doesn't care about winning. You people, the people who think that are just beyond help. This Bryce Harper is so good. This is one of their inserts. I really like these inserts. This is called their summer camp. As you can see, like a nice little shimmer background. And Corbin Carroll, he was on his way to being a top 10 prospect, I think. Still a lot to like. Needs to show that he's healthy when he starts the next year. But I'll rank Alec Thomas a little bit ahead of him, but it won't be by very much. Corbin Carroll has a chance to be very, very good. Maybe a helper. I would guess 2023, but maybe a helper next year. Alec Thomas is a for sure helper next year. Oswald Peraza, one of the most improved prospects. Like what the Yankees got from Anthony Volpe and from Oswald Peraza in terms of improvement this year is massive, just massive. A chance to be a really nice player and a player who I think is better in fantasy in real life because of the chance to steal bases. And then, hey, we just talked about him, Alec Thomas. Super underrated prospect. I was impressed with what he did in AAA as a young guy. I think he has a chance to be a very, very solid starting outfielder for a real long time. I would say Carroll has the most upside. I would actually say of their outfield prospects, Christian Robinson has the highest upside, but there's obviously a lot going on there, and we may never get a chance to see that play out. So, all right, box number 2. Yeah, minor league player of the year. Yeah, and justifiably so. Justifiably so. So, I'm curious what you guys think of these wild card games because I have a clear winner on paper, but on paper, this is why they play the games, and especially in baseball, it can be just one game. We'll talk about it on the podcast more, but I like the Dodgers by a significant margin. Like if this was a football game, I think you would be making them a 2-touchdown favorite. All due respect to the Cardinals, great season, amazing season to do what they did, especially in September. But I just think the Dodgers are a much better team. Yankees, if the game was in New York, I would make them a significant favorite too, just because of what's going on with Boston right now. And the fact the bats have kind of slowed down, but the fact it's in Boston, I don't know. And weird things seem to happen. I'll also be interested to see what the over-under on game time is for that one. I'll go 4.5 hours. those games always take a long time. And I I just imagine that's what we're going to see again. All right, Yadi Molina, speaking of the Cardinals, he's got to make the Hall of Fame whether we like it or not. Like Kirilloff rookie card. DJ and I talked about this on our podcast a few weeks ago. Time is just a construct for me now, but big fan of Kirilloff. I think he's going to hit for average, hit for power, just needs to stay healthy. And, that's not a non-thing, but it is something that a guy I would be looking to invest in again, because Kirilloff's offensive talent is through the roof. There's another summer camp, Nolan Gorman. Gorman will probably be my top 10 prospect list for next year. He is a flawed player, but I think the fact that he's probably moving over to second base is a huge help. And I would guess that he can be adequate there. I would say this, if the shift goes away, that's a position I'd be a little more worried about. Second base will be one of the positions that's most affected, I think, by these shifts, because you can kind of get away with playing lackluster dudes there when you don't have any rule for where that second baseman can play. If you're talking about a traditional second baseman, I think the value for that position goes up considerably, but we'll see. All right, a couple of my favorite prospects. They're not first Bowmans, but certainly guys that I like an awful lot. I have this guy as the best fantasy pitching prospect in baseball, Hunter Green. Stuff is just so electric. Like, all due respect to Grayson Rodriguez, who is a superstar, like a superstar pitching prospect. And I think Green would rank second in my real life pitching prospects. But I think he has more of a chance to miss bats than Rodriguez. I know I've said that before. I know that some people have disagreed with me. Oh, well, I love Hunter Green, and I'm rooting for him too, because he's a really good kid. And then this guy is the best actual prospect in baseball, in Adley Rutschman. I mean, it's so hard to imagine him not being at least a very good starting catcher, because he can hit for average, he can hit for power, he has a great approach, he's a solid defensive backstop. It's just real hard to see him not being a very solid starting catcher for a long time. Now, look, we said kind of the same thing about Matt Wieters. But I think Rutschman's a better prospect than Wieters, and I think he has a higher floor than Wieters did. So we'll see. But I would imagine that Rutschman is up very early next year, and if you were making bets on who wins Rookie of the Year next year, I think Rutschman would be the guy that I would be at least hedging a little bit, because there's a very good chance that he wins that award. All right, box 2. Jesus Sanchez. It was weird that everybody kind of gave up on Jesus Sanchez based on his struggles last year. And it was kind of weird that the Rays kind of gave up on him, period. I mean, Nick Anderson is a very nice pitcher when he can stay healthy, but I like Jesus Sanchez a lot. He is somebody that I'm going to have on fantasy teams next year, because I think he can hit for average, he can hit for power. Not a great season, but certainly better than what he showed in 2020 in that very limited sample. But I like Jesus Sanchez a lot. Tyler Stevenson, rookie, a guy who was much better than. So Tyler Stevenson is interesting because he got drafted with the 10th or 11th pick. And it's, it was slow. And that's the thing with catching prospects, unless they're college guys like Adley Rutschman, and who are as talented as Adley Rutschman. It takes time. This guy looks like a starting catcher for a very long time. Really impressed. All right. Liover Pagiero. This is called the Dawn of Glory insert. Pretty cards. Pagiero, real nice prospect in the Pittsburgh system, kind of underrated because that system is kind of loaded right now. But a chance to be a starter someday for sure. Speaking of starters someday, Francisco Alvarez. When Rutschman graduates, I think he ranked this guy as the best catching prospect. And Keibert Ruiz, I think technically might start as a prospect next year. I haven't really looked at it. I think Ruiz has a higher floor, but Alvarez has a higher ceiling. I think you could argue that he has the highest ceiling of any catching prospect, including Adley Rutschman. Chance to be a star, and I know DJ will appreciate me saying that. Now, unfortunately, this guy was probably the most disappointing prospect in baseball last year, Drew Waters. Some of it injury, but the strikeout issue was always there and something you had to be cognizant of. But it looked like he was one of those rare guys who could hit for average despite the strikeouts. Not so sure about that anymore. He's either going to have to change the approach and become a real 30 to 35 homer type of guy, or just completely cut down on the strikeouts. And if he can do that, he still has a chance to be a good player because he's a good defensive player, fast, stolen bases should be there. Still like him a lot from a fantasy perspective, but really going to have to cut down on the strikeouts. All right. Bet you this one's our auto. It seems that the third pack seems to have the auto with these. I've opened a couple of them, but we'll see. First up, Nate Pearson, rookie card. Love Nate Pearson. Question what his role is going to be, but I love Nate Pearson. All right. No auto this time, but we did get a numbered. This is called Speckle, Matthew Allen. Tommy John guy, but super talented. As much as we love to make fun of the Mets, they've done a pretty darn good job with these type of arms. I think he has a chance to pitch at or near the top of a rotation, but we need to see what happens after he comes back. Mick Abel, who I rank as the second best pitching prospect coming out of the 2020 draft. Looks like he's better than Jared Kelly, who I just said nice things about, and I still like. But I think Abel has a better combination of ceiling and floor right now. Wouldn't shock me if he was helping the Phillies in 2023. All right, first we've got Manuel Beltran of the Toronto Blue Jays. Blue Jays are just loaded with these type of prospects. They've got guys like Leo Jimenez, who we don't even talk about, who would be the best shortstop prospect on the overwhelming majority of teams who have a chance to be stars. I would guess that Manuel Beltran is a guy who probably has to switch positions at some point, but a super talented guy with a high upside. And the Blue Jays development system is one that you have to be at least take notice of. They're not quite the Rays or the Padres or anybody like that right now, but they've done a really good job with these type of prospects. And then Po Yu Chen, the other first Bowman. I'm not super familiar with him. I was just looking at the birthday, turned 20. Reports of like a back-end starter type, but there's nothing wrong with a back-end starter. It's just we're looking for that card game, make me rich. Po Yu Chen isn't going to do it. But yeah, a nice player. Again, there are a ton of first Bowmans of just super young players in this set. Super, super young players. All right. We got our auto, and it's disappointing. Sorry in advance. Sam Huff rookie card. So Huff's season was basically a lost one because of injury, but I'm a big fan of him, and I think he might make my top 10 prospect list to begin 2022. Just because I think he's going to be the starting catcher, and I love that power so much. Serious contact issues, and not a great defender, but the power is so good, and from that position, I think he can be a helper. Ketel Marte. Marte had a really good season for a really terrible baseball team, and I almost said a word that I'm not allowed to say. But he's a good player, man. Ketel Marte can play. I'll be curious to see if he's a person that, if Arizona's like deep into the we need to just tear this down, and if you lose 110 games, not a bad idea. But Marte's young, signed to a fair extension, a team-friendly extension, I actually would say. Maybe not super fair for Ketel Marte. We'll end with the auto for this pack. Eduardo Garcia, talented dude, long way to go. I was just looking at him the other day, 2002, so turned 19. I'm still not quite used to that. But a chance to be a starting shortstop someday, but we're talking about 2023, 2024 at the best. Same thing with this guy, Kevin Made. A lot of mixed reports, but talented, like all of these kids are, as I've said, talented like 30 times. And while it's true about any baseball prospect, it's especially true for a lot of these first Bowman guys, because we are talking about, for the second set especially, we are almost always talking about guys that are playing at the lowest levels. But Kevin Made is one of the best prospects in the system. But like we're talking about young prospects in the system, I should say, because that system got rebuilt. I would have said he's in consideration for the top 10 before all of the trades, but now he's probably closer to like that 15 to 20 range, but a nice prospect. And then here's our auto, Coen Moreno. It's a 5th round pick. couldn't tell you much about him. And as a prospect guy, that's kind of sad, but a guy who we didn't get to see this year. And so there's not a whole heck of a lot for me to say. That's actually my second Coen Moreno. So if I was a what would be the word for it? A man without scruples, that I'd be really hyping up, but a lot of question marks. That's okay. Question marks are okay. Would have been nice to have seen some color with the autos. And by color, what I mean is a parallel where it's like a green out of 99 or an orange out of 25, but it is what it is. All right. Jorge Soler. I'm still mad the Mariners didn't trade for this guy because they were able to get him for pretty cheap. And I think he would have really helped them. All due respect to Dylan Moore and Jake Fraley, I would have liked to have seen what Jorge Soler's bat could have done. But it is what it is. Jose Ramirez, not going to be a top 3 MVP guy this year, but that's the insult of Jose Ramirez. Such a good player, and I wonder if he's a guy who could be on the move this year. He'll be underdrafted in fantasy formats, and we'll wonder why we did it again. Like, yeah, a wonderful trade for the Braves. Like they gave up an intriguing arm, but that was an easy trade for them to make. And I love what the Cardinals and Braves both did, and it proved. I get talked to this, or I talk to people about this all the time. There seems to be this belief that you either have to go all in and trade all of your prospects to make yourselves a winning team, or you have to just hoard your prospects and you have to hope these guys develop. And then, then when you're like a guaranteed World Series team, then you can move those guys. I think that's nonsense. And that's one of the things that frustrated me with what Seattle did. And, yes, they got extremely lucky with their run differential. And yes, this is a team with a lot of really talented young players, especially in the minors. But they could have made a couple of moves without destroying their farm system. And they ended up one game back. And I think it's fair to say that there were players they could have gotten that could have made up that game in maybe 2. So it's just frustrating to me that we have this belief that you either have to completely tank or completely go all in. And I'd much rather see teams go all in than tank, even as a prospect guy. But it's frustrating to me to think that there is not a mix. There's absolutely a mix. The Mariners kind of even showed it was a mix by trading for Tyler Anderson, who stunk yesterday, but and making the trade for Diego Castillo. But the idea that you can't do both, that you can't explore getting better without hemorrhaging your farm system, is a nonsense one. And the Braves and Cardinals both proved that. All right. 40-man future, Zach Veen. I will caution you with Veen. I like him a lot. I think he's one of the best prospects in baseball. But the stolen base thing, keep in mind the rules. Keep in mind that there was the only a certain amount of pickoff things. I don't think this is a 30-plus stolen base guy going forward, but really nice player. Long way to go, but has a chance to be a really good outfielder. Marco Luciano, who we talked about already, and Jared Kelly, who we talked about already. All right, one more pack, one more chance to get some color. So Hedbert Perez's is a first in the original Bowman set. So this is one of the things that I think people can get frustrated by. So for instance, in this Bowman Chrome set, Austin Martin is not a first Bowman. He is considered a first Bowman in Bowman Baseball Hobby and Bowman Baseball Jumbo. But in the actual Bowman Chrome set, he's not a first Bowman. And that's the same thing for Hedbert Perez. His base is labeled a first in that one, but it is not labeled a first in the Bowman Chrome set. I don't love that. It just makes things really complicated. And I love Topps, and I'm loyal to them till I pass. But I do think that the really confusing thing, like, why not just make it a Chrome set of the cards you already had? And I like including the other ones, include the other ones for sure. but then it gets real confusing about who's first Bowman in what set. It just a little confusing. All right. Well, we got a refractor, I think. That's cool. But no color. Kyle Lewis. Get healthy, man. I just don't know if you can count on it. But if Kyle Lewis is healthy, I think he's a well above average outfielder. Who are the autos? I got a Coen Moreno and a Melvin Perez. So not great, but I do think that Perez is certainly an interesting guy. And then pitcher autos are just never my thing anyway. But yeah, this is an interesting one. Jesus Luzardo, still in the A's uniform, which shows you that they print these a long time ago. And also proves that they don't have to do the first Bowman thing that they're doing. I still believe in Luzardo, and I love that he's going to get like the A's aren't bad at developing pitching by any stretch of the imagination, but I think it's fair to say the Marlins are as good as anybody right now with developing young arms, and I'm very curious to see what they can do with him with a full off season. I am not giving up on Jesus Luzardo at all. Josiah Gray. Some mixed results towards the end, but as a young pitcher, I think we all saw what he's capable of. A rookie card that I'll be interested in getting for sure when he's considered a rookie in the 2022 sets, I imagine. This was a guy I was really high on and got some very mixed reports, but he's super young. Ed Howard, a guy that I had as a top 100 prospect coming into the year because I think he could hit for average and he could steal bases. Didn't show a lot of that in 2021, but first full minor league season, young player. I think he's 20. This is what I love about these cards. Yeah, he turned 20 in August, so lots of time for him to develop, but a little more development than I thought he would need. Then finally, this is our refractor, Julio Carreras. Ezequiel Tovar is the better first Bowman in this set for the Colorado Rockies, but a talented guy and a guy who just turned 21, so he's a little bit older. Bottom 30, in the bottom towards the 30 rank, I would say, for prospects. That was just word jumble. Wish we could go back and edit out whatever the heck I was trying to say. But a guy who would rank in that 20 to 30 range in those prospects, which there's nothing wrong with that, but it's not quite what we were looking for. But as you can see, these cards are pretty. The first Bowmans I'd really be looking to get from this set are Christian Hernandez, which we got, Carlos Colmenares, which we got as well, Tovar, who we mentioned, Pedro Pineda, really talented prospect that I would be looking to, if you're doing eBay stuff, taking a look at, a chance to be a very strong starting outfielder. Who else? Wilman Diaz and Luis Rodriguez of the Dodgers. I mean, those are kind of the big gets. If you've done team sets, you've probably seen the Dodgers be either the most expensive team or the second most expensive team. Pedro Leon of Houston. Leon's numbers are, I think, a little misleading in a couple of ways. So misleading on one sense because he really struggled to start the year, so his overall numbers were actually better than what they were. But I also say a little old and developed for the level he was playing at. He should have dominated. Like if he's as talented as some are saying, and the various looks in talking to scouts, he's certainly a talented player. But I was expecting a little more overall. Like not a huge waste of a year, but also not a guy who I think really stood out. He won't be on my top 100 to open the year. The Astro guy that I'm really looking at is, and it's not his first Bowman this year, but I really like Jeremy Pena, and I was impressed with what he did. A player that I am especially looking to buy right now in my collection because I think he has a chance to be a really, really good player going forward, and maybe even a starter for them next year, depending on what happens with Carlos Correa. Can you rank your top 5 prospects in this prospect? So Hernandez, Colmenares, Wilman Diaz are the top 3 for sure for me. Hernandez, Colmenares, Wilman Diaz, Luis Rodriguez would be right there. I like Diaz more than I like Rodriguez based on my brief look and what I've heard from scouts. And then 5th, I think I personally would go with Pedro Pineda. The numbers aren't great, but I was really impressed with his approach. I think he has a chance to be above average in a bunch of categories, maybe even plus in a bunch of categories. If you wanted to argue Pedro Leon is in that next list, sure. But I think that's it. But I think the top three are very clearly Hernandez, Colmenares, and Diaz for me. Like I said, I did just sell an orange Diaz, and we'll see if I end up regretting it. But yeah, that's where I would go. Well, this was a lot of fun. I thank everybody for joining us. I thank everybody for the questions. Again, we're going to be doing more of this card stuff as we go forward. It's something that I really like, and it's something that you guys apparently like a lot too, because we got a lot of good questions here, and I had a blast. We're going to be doing a couple of postseason podcasts, kind of predicting what's going on. Especially tonight, we're going to be doing something where we're talking about these wild card games. I think they're really interesting games. One more interesting than the other, if we're being honest. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. Thanks for joining us. You can follow me on Twitter at Crawford_MILB. My DMs are open because I'm an idiot. So if you have any prospect questions or card questions, feel free to send them over. You can see I'm wearing my Sonics hat. I love my Sonics. I miss them so very, very much. What a weird way to end a podcast. A weird way to end a chat about cards. But yeah, thanks everybody. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time.